Welcome to Daily Listening Practice. This series is designed for those who want to improve their English listening skills in an easy and enjoyable way. In this series, we'll explore the extraordinary life of Alexander the Great, one of the most remarkable figures in world history. From a young Macedonian prince to a military leader who built one of the largest empires ever known, the story is told slowly and clearly, using simple and easy-to-understand words to help you follow along. Before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated and helps us create more helpful content for learners. Now, let's begin with part 1, the early life of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was born in 356 BC in a place called Pella, the capital of the ancient kingdom of Macedonia. His father was King Philip II, a strong and powerful ruler who built a great army. His mother was Queen Olympias, a proud and religious woman. She told Alexander that he was a descendant of heroes and even of the Greek god Zeus. As a young boy, Alexander was full of energy. He was brave, smart, and curious. He liked reading stories about Greek heroes like Achilles. In fact, Achilles became his favorite hero. Alexander wanted to be strong and famous, just like him. When Alexander was 13 years old, his father invited a very special teacher to teach him. The teacher was Aristotle, one of the greatest thinkers in history. Aristotle taught Alexander many subjects, including science, history, geography, and especially philosophy. He also taught Alexander how to think clearly and how to ask questions. These lessons helped Alexander become not only a great warrior, but also a wise and thoughtful leader. As he grew older, Alexander learned how to ride horses and use weapons. One day, he tamed a wild horse named Bucephalus. No one else could control this horse, but Alexander noticed that the horse was only afraid of its shadow. He turned the horse's head toward the sun and rode it successfully. His father was amazed and said, "My son, you must find a kingdom big enough for your dreams. Macedonia is too small for you." Alexander watched his father lead the army and win many battles. He learned about leadership, courage, and how to inspire soldiers. By the time he was a teenager, many people already saw him as a future king. Alexander's early life was full of learning, training, and preparation. He was not just a prince, he was already showing signs of becoming one of the greatest leaders in history. Part 2. Rise to Power of Alexander the Great. When Alexander was just 16 years old, his father, King Philip II, left him in charge of Macedonia while he went to war. During this time, Alexander showed great leadership by quickly stopping a local rebellion. He built a city in that area and named it Alexandropolis. This was one of the first signs that he was ready to lead not just a city, but an empire. In 336 BC, something tragic happened. King Philip II was assassinated during a celebration. Alexander, who was only 20 years old at the time, became the new king of Macedonia. Many people doubted that someone so young could rule a kingdom and lead an army, but Alexander acted quickly and confidently. Right after becoming king, Alexander had to face challenges from nearby tribes and from other parts of Greece. Some Greek cities believed that Philip's death was their chance to break away from Macedonian control. But Alexander was not going to let that happen. He marched south with his army and demanded loyalty. In some cities, he used force. In others, he made agreements. He showed both strength and intelligence. One of the most important moments was when he went to the city of Thebes. The people of Thebes had started a strong rebellion. Alexander responded with full power. He destroyed most of the city and made an example of it, warning others not to fight against him. After that, the rest of Greece stayed quiet. They knew Alexander was a strong and serious leader. Alexander also worked hard to gain support from the Greek people. He visited important religious sites and made offerings to the gods. This helped him earn the trust of priests and local leaders. He wanted to show that he respected Greek traditions and beliefs. Once he had control over Greece, Alexander turned his attention to a bigger goal, continuing his father's plan to conquer the Persian Empire. Persia was one of the most powerful empires in the world at that time. Alexander trained his troops carefully. He made sure they were ready for a long campaign. He also gathered weapons, supplies, and ships. He even studied Persian strategies and learned about their culture and geography. Alexander was not just rushing into battle, he was planning every step. By the age of 22, Alexander was no longer just a young king. He was the commander of one of the strongest armies in the world and was ready to face the great empire of Persia. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed into Asia with his army. It was the beginning of one of the most famous military campaigns in history. His rise to power was fast, but it was built on courage, smart decisions, and the strong foundation he had received during his youth. Part 3. The Persian campaign begins. In 334 BC, Alexander the Great officially began his campaign against the Persian Empire. At the young age of 22, he crossed the Hellespont into Asia with an army of around 40,000 soldiers. His goal was clear: to defeat the Persian king Darius III and take control of one of the largest empires in the world. The first major battle took place at the Granicus River. Persian forces were waiting on the opposite bank, confident they could stop Alexander's army. But Alexander surprised them. Instead of waiting for a better moment, he led his cavalry directly across the river and launched a powerful attack. The battle was intense, but Alexander's bold move led to a decisive victory. Many Persian leaders were killed, and the remaining forces ran away. After the victory at Granicus, Alexander moved deeper into Asia Minor, also known as Anatolia. His army advanced quickly, and many Greek cities under Persian rule decided to surrender without fighting. These cities welcomed Alexander as a liberator rather than a conqueror. He allowed them to govern themselves, gaining their trust and support. Alexander used smart strategies to win both battles and loyalty. He treated local people with respect, and he understood the value of support from the regions he entered. His leadership inspired his soldiers, who were proud to follow a general who fought at the front and cared for their needs. The early stages of the campaign showed that Alexander was not only brave, but also a skilled strategist. His fast movements, personal bravery, and clever diplomacy gave him strong control over Western Asia Minor. The morale of his troops was high, and many believed that Alexander was destined for even greater victories ahead. Part 4. Conquering Egypt and the East. After defeating the Persians at the Battle of Issus in 333 BC, Alexander continued to show his strength as a leader. The Persian king, Darius III, had brought a large army to stop him, but Alexander's clever tactics helped him win again. During the battle, Darius fled the field, leaving behind his family and soldiers. This showed that Alexander had the upper hand, and it also hurt the image of Darius as a strong king. Instead of chasing Darius immediately, Alexander turned south and marched into Egypt. The Egyptians had been ruled by the Persians for many years and were unhappy with foreign control. When Alexander arrived in 332 BC, he was welcomed as a liberator. The people respected him for honoring their gods and traditions. In return, they made him Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. This gave Alexander not only power in Egypt, but also a stronger image across the ancient world. While in Egypt, Alexander founded a new city near the Nile River and the Mediterranean coast. He named it Alexandria. He carefully chose the location for trade and defense. Alexandria later became one of the greatest cities of the ancient world, known for its library, culture, and learning. This city would keep Alexander's name and memory alive for centuries. Egypt was very important for both military and symbolic reasons. It gave Alexander access to food, ships, and trade routes. It also helped him appear as a true world ruler, not just a conqueror, but a respected king. After securing Egypt, Alexander continued his campaign to the east. He moved through the Middle East and entered Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This region had once been home to great empires like Babylon and Assyria. Now Alexander was on his way to face Darius again and to take the heart of the Persian Empire. With each step, Alexander gained more power, more followers, and more ambition. His journey through Egypt and into the East was not just about winning battles. It was about building a legacy that would last forever. Part 5. The Fall of Persia. After leaving Egypt, Alexander continued his march toward the heart of the Persian Empire. In 331 BC, he faced Darius III once again at the Battle of Gaugamela, one of the most important battles in ancient history. Although the Persian army was much larger, Alexander's strategy and leadership helped him win a major victory. Darius fled the battlefield once more, and Alexander's path to the Persian capital was now open. Following this victory, Alexander entered Babylon, one of the greatest cities of the time. The people welcomed him, and he respected their customs and religion. Then he moved on to Susa and Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of Persia. These cities were full of treasures, symbols of the Persian king's power. At Persepolis, Alexander allowed his soldiers to take treasure and celebrate. However, in a moment of anger or celebration, the royal palace was burned down. Some say this was a symbol of the end of Persian rule, while others believe it was an accident or a decision made in revenge. Either way, the burning of Persepolis marked a turning point. It signaled that the Persian Empire was finished. Meanwhile, Darius tried to escape and rebuild his forces. But before he could do so, he was killed by his own men. When Alexander found his body, he was angry and gave Darius a proper royal funeral. This act showed Alexander's sense of honor and his desire to be seen not just as a conqueror, but as the rightful ruler of Persia. With Darius gone, Alexander became king of Asia. But he did not stop there. He began dressing like a Persian king and tried to bring together the cultures of Greece and Persia. Some of his men disliked this change, but Alexander believed that uniting people was the best way to rule such a large empire. The fall of Persia marked the peak of Alexander's power. He had defeated the largest empire in the world and now ruled over a vast land stretching from Greece to the mountains of Iran. Yet, for Alexander, this was not the end. It was only the beginning of a new journey toward the unknown lands of the East. Part 6. Journey to India and Turning Point. After conquering the Persian Empire, Alexander the Great set his sights on new lands to the east. His ambition pushed him to continue expanding his empire. In 327 BCE, he led his army through the dangerous Hindu Kush mountains, a difficult and cold journey. The path was steep and narrow, and many soldiers and animals suffered along the way. Still, Alexander kept going, determined to explore what lay beyond. Eventually, he reached the region of modern-day Pakistan and northern India. There, he faced King Porus, a strong and brave ruler, at the Battle of the Hydaspes River in 326 BCE. Porus had a large army and even used war elephants, which the Greeks had never seen before. The battle was intense, and the rain made it even more difficult. But once again, Alexander's leadership and smart tactics helped him win. After the battle, Alexander was impressed by Porus's courage. Instead of punishing him, Alexander made him an ally and allowed him to continue ruling his land. This showed that Alexander respected strength and loyalty, even in former enemies. However, the journey into India became harder. The weather was hot and humid, the terrain was unfamiliar, and food was sometimes scarce. But the biggest problem was the mood of his army. His soldiers were tired after years of fighting far from home. When they reached the Hyphasis River, Alexander wanted to keep going deeper into India. But his troops refused. They had seen enough battles and they missed their families. At first, Alexander was angry. He tried to convince them to continue, but in the end he accepted their decision. They turned back and began the long journey home. Instead of returning by the same path, Alexander chose a dangerous route through the Gedrosian Desert in today's southern Iran and Pakistan. This decision proved to be one of his worst. The desert was dry and harsh, with little water or food. Many soldiers and animals died during the journey. It was one of the greatest losses his army ever suffered. The march through the desert marked a turning point. Alexander had reached the edge of the known world, but the cost was high. Though still a great leader, he had pushed his army to its limits, and now they longed for peace. His dream of reaching further east had ended, and it was time to return west and focus on ruling the vast empire he had created. Part 7. Death and Legacy. After years of war and long journeys, Alexander returned to Babylon in 323 BCE. He had many new plans. He wanted to explore Arabia, strengthen his empire, and mix the cultures of the East and West. However, he never had the chance to complete these plans. Suddenly, Alexander became very sick. After several days of high fever, he died at the young age of 32. The exact reason for his death is still unknown. Some people believe he died from natural illness, while others think he may have been poisoned. His sudden death shocked the ancient world. Without a clear successor, his empire quickly began to fall apart. His top generals, known as the Diadochi, fought for control. They divided the empire into several parts, and each ruled a different region. This marked the end of the united empire that Alexander had created. Even though his empire did not last, Alexander's influence continued for centuries. He had spread Greek ideas, language, and culture across a huge area, from Greece to Egypt and into India. This spread of culture is called Hellenism. New cities like Alexandria in Egypt became centers of learning and trade. Greek-style buildings, art, and education could be seen throughout the former empire. Alexander is remembered as one of history's greatest military leaders. He was brave, intelligent, and full of vision. His life showed what one person could achieve through determination and bold ideas. Even today, his name is known around the world, and his story continues to inspire people everywhere. Now, please take a moment to reflect on the following questions from our series. We invite you to share your answers in the comments section. Thank you for your attentive listening.